Okay, so thank you once again for joining us for the final session today on covering off providing an exceptional customer experience during a crisis. We're going to be running through this session with myself and Louise Hartley, who's a customer success manager here at accessplanit, and also joined by two of our clients here as well, Tom Hesmanhal and Helen Louise too. So guys, we're just going to unmute yourselves now as panelists and also share your screens, share your videos too. So you should be able to see you all in a second. Hello.
Hi.
Hi everyone. So Tom, you should be able to see us.
Hello.
Oh, there we go. And we can see you now, Tom. Some technical issues there. Okay, so just to kick off then, in terms of this session and what we're going to go through, we're going to have quick introductions first of all to our panelists here who've joined us today, and then we're going to be going through some of the impacts on coronavirus that we've seen within the training industry, and we'll also be able to be looking at how these organisations have pivoted their approach to training, and then what they see for the future of training. So firstly, let's start with some introductions. So Lou, we'd like to kick off with just introduce yourself to the people we've got on today's session.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt, and afternoon, everyone, or evening, or morning, wherever you are. So, as Matt said, my name is Louise Hartley. I'm one of the customer success managers at accessplanit. So, my role in the business is really to make sure that our customers are a success, not only with the system itself, but their businesses in general. And I do what I can alongside our other support team as well, and my colleagues, just to make sure that that happens.
And Helen?
Yes, so I'm Helen Lovett, and I'm the Customer Service Director at First Intuition, and we offer accountancy and tax training predominantly, although in recent years we've moved very much into the apprenticeship market, and we offer apprenticeships, finance apprenticeships, but also more recently in leadership and management.
Excellent. I think we might be having a few technical issues here with Tom. I'll just unmute you again there, Tom, to see if we can pick you through, but it might be we're having a few technical difficulties. Hello, Tom, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me all right? Can't hear me, can you?
That's okay, we can hear you again now.
Oh, huzzah. Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. I mean, no webinar would be complete, of course, without the traditional hello bit at the beginning of all of them. Yeah, hi, I'm Tom Hesmanhal. I'm the Commercial Director at Creative Education. We train, so after they've to trends in the market.
Excellent. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just stop sharing my screen and we can see all of us together. So just to kick off with then, obviously the coronavirus really hit the training industry, I suppose, around 6 to 8 weeks ago. I suppose from an accessplanit perspective, dealing with a number of training providers, both in the UK, around Europe and the world as well, across various different sectors and industries, both in higher education through to commercial industries as well. We probably start seeing things trickle through with vast cancellations of courses, as Andy Shanks and Emily spoke to us about in the first session. We started to see that impact very early on of those cancellations. But in terms of First Intuition, if we go to yourself, Helen, first, what impact has coronavirus had on First Intuition as an organisation? And can you just talk us through how that developed with yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So I'm sure some of the challenges we faced at First Intuition have been similar in many industries, and particularly in the training industry. Very much like accessplanit, one of the biggest challenges was adjusting to the entire workforce now working from home. And like yourselves, we were able to facilitate this very quickly within a matter of hours. But a lot, that's caused other things that we've had to deal with, especially when the schools closed. I know we touched on this briefly in the previous session, but, members of staff who've now got to juggle childcare along with homeschooling and so on. It's been particularly difficult for those members and staff. And one of the ways we've dealt with this is obviously taking advantage of the job retention scheme and putting some members of staff on furlough. And that's caused additional problems such as the staff who aren't furloughed have had to pick up their responsibilities and learn new things. So, that's certainly been a change for us and something that we've had to manage as we go along. And in terms of being able to carry on with our business, I mean, I think First Intuition is in a fortunate position in that we're already a very successful distance learning provider. But on the flip side, a huge part of our business is delivering in the classroom. I think where some of our competitors have pushed their clients down an online delivery only route, this is something we've always been very committed to not doing. There's still very much a demand for face-to-face tuition with our clients. And so, we've been in a situation where, we've got teams of tutors who are very experienced in remote delivery and other teams of tutors who are much more experienced in delivering in the classroom. So, it's been really important in this to share that knowledge across those teams, and help the classroom tutors really get the most out of the technology and be able to recreate the classroom scenario as realistically as possible.
That's something I think is really interesting. I think we want to come back on a little bit later on is trainers who aren't used to online delivery.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in terms of our students, the ones that we actually train, there's been huge impact on them as well, because before lockdown, many of our students had finished their courses and they were now ready to take their exams. But the professional bodies that we teach for weren't immediately ready to allow remote proctoring, online invigilation, so exams could still go ahead. So they've had huge gaps in their study between being ready to when they are, sort of now some of them are starting to be able to sit their exams again remotely. But, there's been a challenge in keeping them up to date with their studies and keeping everything fresh in their minds.
Tom, I can see you nodding along there. Would you mind giving us a bit more insight into one of the challenges you faced at Creative Education?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've a lot, Helen, of what you were saying there. We've had to pivot really to doing our business remotely from home. And being able to work effectively remotely, and when we were coming into this, we weren't as enlightened as other companies are in terms of working from home policy, and I wouldn't say we had the systems in place really to facilitate that smooth transition to working from home, and it was painful. And I think staff are probably getting sick of me already asking them to learn a new system or a new approach, but we have had to put in place lots of new things to make sure that people can work at home effectively, and we've tried to be as understanding as we can, with facing really rich situations at home. And if you're a UK company, sorry,
I was just saying, I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty there, Tom. I think we're dropping in and out a little bit, losing you.
Okay, well maybe if I I'll see if I can fix the connect.
That's fine. So just touching back there on what you mentioned, Helen, about how you pivoted, particularly with the trainer approach as well, I suppose we'll come into this. But how did you adjust? So when the coronavirus hit and obviously impacted a number of your face-to-face courses that were running, what changes did you make as a training organisation to factor in the change to more online? Or what type of things did you do to pivot the business to address the issue?
Well, I think I mentioned previously, we've had that very experienced distance learning team of tutors who've helped upskill our classroom tutors so they're able to deliver confidently in the classroom. And I think just going back to the issue that I mentioned with staffing and having to furlough staff, childcare arrangements, something that we have managed to do is pool our resources and run some national schedules. At First Intuition we've got about 15 centres across the UK, and rather than try to recreate run each classroom, we've we've run national schedules where all of those have joined together, and even with a reduced teaching load, we've still been able to offer all the courses to our students that we wanted to. And also by pooling those resources, we've still had enough teaching staff to be able to provide support tutors within those virtual classrooms. And this has been a really key thing in maintaining quality, because obviously the class sizes are bigger with more attendees, and you know the delivery is different. So having those support tutors there who've been able to help with tasks such as helping with any technical query, any technical problems, answering student queries in the chat box. They've also been able to record information such as who attended and did they engage in the class, because this is all information that the classroom tutor would normally record in accessplanit, and then we would pull out a student progress report that we give to our clients. So yeah, we've introduced quite a few things to help us carry on really being able to deliver those classroom courses. But I think there's been some things that we've had to manage differently internally as well. Our customer service teams, for example, are not used to working from home, and although they use tools such as Slack, Trello and Zoom, we've really had to develop how we use these to enable those teams to still work together very effectively, keep in touch with each other, collaborate on projects. So we've really upskilled our customer service teams as well in how to use those tools effectively and keep in touch with one another.
I'm going to ask you a question that I think has appeared on every single webinar so far, which is what tool have you used for your online training?
So we use Zoom for some and Adobe Connect for others, and the reason for that is tutors who have done online delivery before are used to Adobe Connect, more comfortable with it, and so they've been using Adobe Connect and that's gone fairly well. But Zoom, some tutors who are new to it, they're more comfortable with Zoom. And also particularly in the early days of this crisis, Zoom seemed to be a bit more stable and a bit more reliable in terms of connection. We had people dropping out of Adobe Connect, and Zoom seemed to be able to cope better with bandwidth issues. And so, yeah, we've run a lot on Zoom as well.
And there was a question that just came through as well, which was pertinent to what Emily Ness described earlier in the first session, with regard with how metrics you use for customer satisfaction and delegate satisfaction. Have you seen that increase or decrease, or has there been no change in terms of feedback regarding the courses?
Well, we actually have seen this whole thing as a really good opportunity to, keep our clients informed, still be able to deliver everything that we were delivering before this. And, the feedback we have been receiving has just been absolutely fantastic. In these very uncertain times, we've been able to provide clarity and certainty, and I think we'll have generated a huge level of goodwill. No one wants to benefit from a crisis, of course, but I think it's been a really good opportunity to communicate well with our customers, and looking at the feedback, we've been able to maintain those excellent levels of customer service, which we're absolutely delighted with.
And I suppose we'll try over to Tom in terms of, since the crisis hit and your training courses and what you've delivered to delegates, how have you changed your approach? What have you done differently to accommodate for the current situation we find ourselves in?
Sure. Well, I think from the start we decided we had a kind of a 3-point plan that we wanted to take our as I suspect many people will. And firstly, we had this idea in the back of our time about creating a demand library of learning.
I think the line's quite bad, so I think we'll have to some short things.
it'll be business as usual.
So what I might do, I'll try and stop Tom's video and we'll see if we can pull him through here, because there's some great initiatives there. Tom, I'll just stop your video to see if that might help with the bandwidth. But you guys have some great initiatives. You innovated really well in terms of how you responded. So can you just recap for us on that, where how did creative education change?
Yeah, sure. And just jump in if I stop making any sense.
I think we'll have to leave Tom there, I'm afraid. Unfortunately, we'll have to remove Tom from that.
Or you can't hear what I'm saying.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll share some of the thoughts and the initiatives that Tom at Creative Education, they changed and how they pivoted their business. They made some great changes to take their learning online and make it interactive through certain portals as well. So we'll share all of that after the session with some great knowledge in there. So that's a shame. But going back to yourself, Helen, in terms of when you pivoted and when you changed to adjust to the new normal, I suppose, how did you do that with accessplanit? Was there any tips and tricks you've got in there for current customers or people who have TMSs and are interested in how you did that?
Yes, I mean, accessplanit has been absolutely key in helping us with three major things that have been really important through this crisis. And one is, we've had to make rapid amendments, particularly I think at the start, things were just changing every day and we had lots of changes to make, which we could do easily in the system. But then the second thing is, being able to communicate that to our customers, and we've really used accessplanit to help us do that easily. And the other thing that has been really important is keeping an eye on that feedback from our customers, since lockdown. And the tools that we've really used to help us with these in particular are workflows and report writer. So workflows, just been I've made it all so easy, really. Like, we've changed classroom courses into virtual classroom courses. So we've done things like we've put Zoom links into the course template, and without getting too technical, we can then send joining instructions and reminders using the workflows tool that include them Zoom links and no longer tell the customers to go into centre. But we've also done some fairly clever things, like after the virtual classroom, we've put that recording of that Zoom link into a field in the course template, and we've been able to trigger a workflow to send that out to the relevant delegates as well. And of course we use workflows to send out our feedback surveys as well. So workflows have just been incredibly useful, as they always are, but particularly in managing this situation with lots of changes at lots of short notice. And I mentioned report writer, and I think a recent development at accessplanit has been to put the survey results, made them available in report writer, and this was just fantastic from our perspective. I know, I've really played around with it since the webinar, and just being able to analyze that feedback in so many different ways. It's been really easy to, for example, look at one question, what was the results in the 3 months before lockdown to that question, and then compare it to what were the results to that question in the 3 months since lockdown, and or 2 months, whatever. And it's really helped us to keep a really close eye on customer satisfaction. So that has been amazing. And I just think in general, the management teams at First Intuition have been so keen to keep an eye on customer behaviour since lockdown, that requests for management information out of the system are coming to the customer service teams here every day, several times a day. And having that tool to be able to extract that information, it's such a powerful tool in accessplanit, because you can extract anything from the system once you've learned how to use it properly, which it took me a little while, but I'm there now. And it's really enabled us to pass that information to our management teams and let them keep a very close eye on what customers are doing, what bookings are looking like, and as well as feedback. And yeah, it's been really helpful.
Yeah, would it be fair to say that it's allowed you to sort of make any tweaks and changes in real time as well? So if you've had a piece of feedback in, if you've been able to get, I suppose, respond to that feedback straight away?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, what a perfect example is, you know, hearing from these students who are having these gaps in their studies. They were ready to sit their exams. They didn't know when they could sit their exams. So we got that feedback. And, you know, as a result of that, we started running these free bridging programs where students get the opportunity to practice questions, listen to live debriefs of questions, and the feedback we're getting from these bridging sessions has just been fantastic. And you know, we've even offered them to external students who, you know, maybe their training provider hasn't been able to offer such things as bridging programs. So we've been advertising them. And, you know, we've got huge numbers on them, and, you know, really amazing feedback. So I think that's a really good example of how we've been able to respond, and that, you know, down to being able to get feedback and analyse it effectively using accessplanit.
Super. And I suppose just before we're going to go on to the future of the training industry and what long-lasting impacts we see from this. Just for everyone else, you can still put Q&As in and still put questions through the chat as well if you want us to cover off a few questions at the end. But just to go over to yourself, Lou, obviously managing a number of customers within accessplanit, what kind of trends have you seen in the customer base? I suppose with Tom at Creative Education, I know you monitor them quite and work with them quite closely. Have you seen any trends as well that people have used or people have pivoted towards in different approaches within the customer base at accessplanit?
I suppose system-wise, there's been a huge move towards like using Report Writer, like you just ran through there, Helen. You know, there's been a lot of customers using that. Workflows as well, especially. But another move we've seen or move towards is not only using the webinar courses, but also the sessional courses in the system, because that's allowed customers to very quickly break away from or break down a full day session into a number of different sessions, you know, per day. So still keeping a full day's training and keeping that engagement throughout the day. So not sitting for 8 hours solid on a training course, but having, you know, an hour and a half with a break, an hour and a half and a break. And the feedback I've had from customers certainly is that it has been successful. It's still allowed training to, you know, where it's been possible to go ahead virtually, and they still had some very good feedback from there as well. So sessional courses, workflows, Report Writer, reports.
Absolutely, and we've got a speaker on one of our sessions tomorrow, Andy Johnson from London School of Online. He did one of our previous webinar courses, and it was a very hot topic of debate in terms of how long these online courses should be, and his recommendations around an hour and a half to 2 hours at max. We've seen some customers do take a face-to-face fully online all day. I wouldn't want to sit on that course. I think it'd be quite a long period of time to sit there at your laptop on a course, but some people have been doing that.
Yeah, one other thing that's probably worth mentioning, and it touches on what Andy was talking about in the first session as well, is a move towards e-learning as well. I've seen, because I work with a number of customers across different industries as well, there has been a move away from sort of like traditional introductory meetings. So if we take a construction site, for example, where we traditionally there's been everyone's got to be on site for an induction. Potentially moving those initial courses away to an e-learning piece, or even a webinar where that face-to-face engagement isn't necessarily the case. They're moving that into the system, moving it to a webinar, to an e-learning course as well. So we're starting to see things like that coming into play as well.
And would you be able to give us a little bit of an overview of what Creative Education have done to pivot? I know Tom wasn't quite able to convey their strategy and how they changed, but you'd be able to just give everyone a couple of minutes of a quick overview of what Creative Education did. We'll follow up with some more information after this.
Yeah, so it's largely around, we have published a case study on this as well, which is available on the website, but we largely moved towards that sessional course breakdown and bringing sort of a blended learning approach. So where the courses were typically classroom based, they now have a combination of webinar based and e-learning based sessions in there as well. So alongside the sessional courses, supported with the workflows that act as those reminders, it's taken a lot of that administration away from the admin teams and allowed them to focus on answering customers' queries, that customer service element, and making sure that delegates are still getting a good experience, an excellent service from the provider, as well as that course content as well.
Absolutely. And I'll put the case study in the chat message as well for everyone who wants to read that. So just moving on to our final point then, Helen, in terms of the long-term impact from this, whenever that may be, whenever we do see ourselves come out of lockdown, whether it's January next year, who knows when that will be, what do you see the long-term impact will be on the training industry? And I suppose what things will be kept from what we've done so far in terms of how you pivoted and so on. So what do you see the long-term impact being of the situation?
Well, I think we're still very much committed to classroom tuition. We believe in distance learning as well. That's why we sell distance learning courses. But I think, as we've changed to a virtual classroom provision, there's certainly been benefits, the travel time for our students and the flexibility and the recordings have all been very positive. But as well as just those classroom sessions, we've provided these additional bridging sessions and little revision sessions and everything. So I think, although we are very keen to get back to face-to-face training, we're not going to do it this year. We're not going to do it until we know it's safe to do so, but we will return to that eventually. But some of these really innovative things that we've introduced, and we've had some great ideas, have been so well received that we will continue with some of them to run alongside the face-to-face tuition. So we'll certainly, it's definitely been a learning experience. And I think from an internal point of view, because like I said, we've got 15 different offices across the UK, and the management team spend so much time traveling for face-to-face meetings. That's all we do is face-to-face meetings. And I think experiencing how successful a Zoom meeting can be means that we won't just do the face-to-face meetings anymore. We'll do a combination of Zoom meetings and face-to-face meetings, and that actually allows you to meet more regularly, and it's much easier. So that's certainly something that we will keep in future to allow us to speak more regularly as a management team. But I think the key thing really, and this goes back to feedback, is it's all right just thinking what we think's gone well. It'll be really, really key to, over the next weeks and months, speak to our clients, speak to our students, and get their perception of what worked well for them. And this is going to be really useful in shaping what we do going forwards. I think First Intuition have always taken the approach of being flexible and adapting to what our clients want, and that's put us in a really good position to deal with this crisis. And as lockdown is eased, or the crisis that comes to an end, we'll continue with that approach, and it'll be very much back to the classroom with the things that worked well on top of that as an additional thing. So
no sharing of pens, though, as Emily said. No sharing of pens in the classroom, though. I think Andy Shanks made that point. No pads and pens. And Lou, what do you see?
I was just going to say, I think I'll echo what Helen said there as well. I mean, I've certainly found from my perspective, working in customer service and making sure my customers are a success, that doing a lot more meetings over Zoom, and even something as simple as turning your webcam on, which sounds daft, sounds really simple, but it's massively increased customer engagement, meeting with a lot more customers, a lot more regularly as well, by simply removing that travel time. That's not to say that face-to-face will disappear. I think there'll always be a place for face-to-face. We don't always want to live in a virtual world, but I think it's made a huge impact.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think that's just about out of time there for 5:30. I know with just looking out my window here, it's some glorious sunshine and nice hot weather as well. So I think you're certainly calling for a beer in the garden as well. But I'd just like to thank Helen for your time today. It's a real big thank you from accesssplanit for coming on and just talking to the industry, talking to different training providers. Some great insight there as well. And thank you to my colleague Louise for taking time out of the day as well. Thank you everyone for attending today's first ever virtual summit for accesssplanit. It's been a learning curve for us trying to get this up and running, so we do thank you for attending today's session. Don't forget, we're going to do this all again tomorrow. We've got a great lineup for tomorrow in terms of sales and marketing, how to re-energize your business, how to make sure the business structures are correct. We'll put the agendas back up as well, and that'll be going through just at the end of this webinar. But thank you so much for joining. Thank you for engaging. Thank you to Helen, to Andy, to all of our panelists, to Emily and to Henry as well. Thank you everyone for attending, and we'll hopefully see you tomorrow. And go and enjoy the sunshine. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.